And also Cassie, yeah, Cassie, right, is excused as well. Please join for the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, uh, 1 minute. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank all of you. All right, we will be sharing the land acknowledgement this evening, and Vice President Tracy.
Okay, it's the Squamish tribe's land acknowledgement tonight. Every part of this soil is sacred in the estimation of my people. Every hillside, every valley, every plain and grove has been hallowed by some sad or happy event in days long vanished. Chief Seattle, 1854. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is within the Aboriginal territory of the Squamish people of Clear Saltwater, of the Squamish people of Clear Saltwater. Expert fishermen, canoe builders, and basket weavers, the Squamish live in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's central Salish Sea, as they have for thousands of years. Here the Squamish live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1885.
Oh, thank you. All right, we now have adoption of the agenda for this meeting. Do we have any corrections or amendments to the agenda?
It was just to amend the agenda to remove the update from our student rep, as she isn't here.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of the student report?
Move approval of the agenda with the removal of the student report.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right, we're unanimous. The agenda will stand as approved, as presented. Approval of consent agenda. We now have approval of consent agenda. Do we have any corrections or changes to consent agenda? All right, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move approval of consent agenda items as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right, unanimously, the consent agenda will stand as approved as presented. All right, since no student report, SKE report, Ms. Nicholson. Right?
Yeah, CKEA.
Oh, CKEA, sorry. CKEA. She's online, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
We have her?
We were in there, then she disappeared.
Alrighty,
Oh, okay.
good evening. I hope you've been staying safe, warm, and have been without, and if you've been without power, that hasn't been for very long. Most folks, unless they have lived in this area, don't understand how dangerous our road conditions can become and how quickly that can happen. Thank you to Erin and her team for having students and staff safety as a priority when our weather presents challenges. A shout out to our GMC department for the work that they have done the past few days, driving roads early in the morning to assess road conditions, plowing parking lots, shoveling snow, and doing everything they can to keep our buildings functional. We want to acknowledge the additional burden of work and appreciate the hard work and efforts of everyone as we are dealing with the snow and challenging conditions. On a different note, we are reaching the end of our trimester 1, which means our elementary staff are starting the process of completing report cards for our elementary students. Additionally, our special education staff are completing progress reports that communicate student progress towards their IEP goals. It's a layer of work our educators do in addition to the day-to-day tasks they do to serve our students. This is the time of year when many of our music staff will be having concerts that showcase the musical talents of our students. Community members are welcome at these concerts, and I encourage all to attend. You will hear some fantastic musical performances from our elementary schools to our middle schools to our high schools. And just a reminder that levy dollars provide support to our music programs in our district, and we thank our community for giving this support to our students in our district. I'd like to close out my report by giving a very big heartfelt thank you to our veterans. I realize that this is coming after Veterans Day. I'm getting used to the new schedule of where our report comes at board meetings. So anyway, a shout out to our veterans. And I would like to especially acknowledge our members who have served, who are currently serving. A great big thank you to them. And also a thank you to our members who have loved ones who have served or who are serving. Again, this service comes with sacrifice, and we want to acknowledge that sacrifice and let all of our veterans, past and current, know that we appreciate their service. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Casson. Thank you. All right, next is SKESP report. Ms. Parr.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for having a Zoom option so that I did not have to leave my home. I'm up in Seebeck and finished shoveling out, and it was snowing again, and it's 33 degrees, so I'd rather have one less car on the road. Thank you. I want to thank Dr. Prince and the team for making a good call yesterday. I know our staff get really nervous when they have to be in school and know that the weather is going to be changing. The timing worked out well, got everybody home safely, and the least amount of people on the roads when the snow really began. And a thank you to our critical employees, our custodians, and our GMC crew who have been working to keep the buildings safe. They've prepared the buildings, cleaned it up so that if we end up in school tomorrow, everything's ready. If not, they're keeping things from getting worse. Because I had 8 inches up here, so we're pretty good up near Green Mountain. And my only update, it's been a quick month. My own real update is that we are working towards a solution for our office staff that are working with our nurses and not having nurses every day. We've come up with a couple of ideas that we're running past the principals to see if that would help, but it's still in motion. So that's all I have today. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have student learning and Ms. Carlson. Next up is approval of the school improvement plan, Ms. Carlson.
Good evening. I am here to ask your approval of the elementary and secondary school improvement plans. Any questions?
Are there any comments or questions from the board?
So when we tried it very early on in my tenure, we tried to discuss improvement plans, and it went on and on and on and on and on. And then we shifted to periodic or scheduled special meetings where we had a couple of the schools come in and go through their improvement plans and give us an update on what was going on. I guess my real issue is okay, this, it's 2.6 megabytes of data. It all kind of runs together because the format is generally the same and everything. So it's kind of like, is this all we're going to get, or is there some intent to have the schools present to us. And I think the way it was set up, because, there are 20 buildings and whatever, it was set up that over the course of a 2-year period, that each school would show up every other year to do that presentation. Is there any intent or any interest on the part of the board to get that, get the updates on how the schools are doing and hearing from the schools themselves?
I remember this got brought up before Jeannie got off, and I think we had said that they were going to present something to us, which I think we only have one overall presentation, right? And that was like when Jeannie that took over. That's the only thing that I remember for it. So I think at that time it wasn't a school; it was everybody that I think you had brought.
Right, but
mistaken, right?
before COVID, what we did is we did a 2-year cycle where we had half the schools do 1 year and half the other.
Right.
And then during COVID, we obviously didn't do that. So now that we're out, we need to discuss how we want to present that.
What that looked like is 2 board members would attend a night
Right.
dinner and the schools would present. We have 2 schools present in each night, I think,
Yeah.
and had a rotation. So it wasn't the full board. I think in the
Right.
past, they used to have full board, schools
It was
would
an
come.
evening.
It was an evening. So yes, to Eric's question, I think now with the study sessions and ongoing student performance, also progress checks, also the cycle of progress and the key performance indicators, it's time for us to kind of talk about what does that look like? Where does the board have the opportunity to discuss school improvement plans and how they're aligned with the strategic plan and the goals and all of that? So perhaps we have time to talk about that at our upcoming retreat in January and put it on the agenda to have further conversation what that would look like and what the board would like to see.
Because I think that's what it was when you presented it the last time. That's what we were talking about, that we haven't done it.
Right,
Yeah,
it was
that's what I
because it was before COVID.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are we good with moving forward with? Because like I said, I looked at, I'm good with what I saw here, and just off of my recollection of the last conversation that you brought, that was the only thing that I remembered for it. I don't have my notes from it, but are we good as a board to move forward with approving of it, or do we want? Because that will slow everything down if we delay, right?
Well, typically they approve them and then we set up the presentations throughout the year. So
Okay.
we've
So we're
always
good with
brought them together, all 19,
Right.
and then we presented them at an evening event, and then we've also done it where we've done the 2-year cycle.
Okay.
That provides the board some ability to dialogue and understand at a local level, at a school level, what are their specific goals, how are they putting into action to help the key performance indicators.
So is the board good with?
So definitely, to go moving forward with approving them tonight and yes, having a discussion of how we want them presented. And even if that's bringing some of it back at a later study session, because I think all of them, the schools are gonna look at it at certain dates. They have it already scheduled out in the year. And so maybe after they've looked at it and there's a shorter presentation, something that, yes.
Okay. Did I answer your question, Eric, too? Are you good with it?
Yeah, I think,
It's back getting on track. That's what it is.
and it would be good, I think it would be good for Jill and her folks and Jeremy and just everybody on the academic side, I think, to determine what kind of information based on the school, so that everybody, we don't want it to be haphazard. I think some of the things that we want to be able to do are is to be able to hear about what's working at one school that might not be, or what might not be working at another. And so that we get a feel for really what's going on across the district. And, but we hear we hear it more or less, not exactly the same, but more or less the same way, the same format from each school when they do present to us.
Okay.
One thing I'm hoping that the board recognized is that every school has their goals that are pointed to and identifying the key performance indicator at their level. So hopefully the board recognized the use of the key performance indicators.
And not only did they set the goals for all students, they also looked at the area where they needed to close the gaps, and they
Yeah.
set goals for that specific
Yes.
area.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So I think, Aaron, to answer your question, there's 18 improvement plans in there. And I know I'm old and everything, but I got going through there, to me, they all ran together after a while. So it was kind of, well, how do I compare this to this or do whatever? Not sure where I go, because if I get to number 16, it was hard just to go page to get through 2.7 megabytes of data. So,
Well, let's bring it
Yeah.
to the retreat and engage the board in that conversation of what would be helpful. So how do we personalize schools and what they're targeting and their demographics and what's unique? Because we have 19 schools and 19 different ways of really action items toward their goals. So I think that I'll be anxious to hear ideas from the board of what makes sense for you and what you need to hear. And make that happen. It doesn't have to look the same as it did pre-COVID.
Okay.
I think as we move forward also with our strategic plan, definitely into next year, that's really going to help us. Like those school improvement plans are going to be very tied to that new strategic plan. So like that, I'm excited for that also coming up. And I just want to add a thank you to all of the schools, all of the committees and teams that put these together. You can see the amount of work that went into looking at the current data and deciding on goals and then all the strategies to work towards those goals. So just a big thank you.
I had it laid out over my floor. That's what I did. All right. Do we have a motion to approve the school improvement plan as presented?
Move approval of school improvement plans as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 all right.
All right. With the unanimous, the school improvement plan will stand as approved, as
Thank
presented.
you.
Welcome. All right. Legislative report, Director Green, especially coming off of WASDA.
I hope I don't have anything, Mr. Jackson.
Do you want?
I know the legislative. I
Okay.
legislative.
For WASDA, yeah.
For WASDA, yeah.
Director, you're right. I just real quick just want to say WASDA did post the 2023 legislative priorities on their website, and so this is what it's from us as school board directors across the state voted and put in our priorities, and our school district put in our priorities, and it's meet the requirements for special education. Provide the needed resources for ample, equitable, and stable education, feed students, construct safe and healthy schools, and transport each and every student. And then it's meeting. We have a new legislator that in the 35th district, and Representative McEwen is now Senator,
Right.
State Senator McEwen. So just getting relationships with them and helping as we move into next January.
All right. Thank you. You want to add?
Yes, I will. So one thing I will add is that I will be working with the ESD to create a time and space for us to welcome our representatives and senators to our area, and we'll be able to share what is important to us as well as how can we best support them. So I will let you know when that is happening. We're going to be working on arranging a couple option times there. We will be taking a group to Olympia to really have some educational time with our representatives, legislators on the Hill so that they better understand impact aid from our perspective at Central Kitsap, but also across the state of Washington, and really more about educating them at the state level because we do definitely a lot of advocating at the federal level. So we want to do some of that. So I just wanted to keep you updated on that piece.
I think from the federal level, now that elections is over, there's a lot of changes. Of course, Patty Murray being moved into great positions that I think we could utilize in education, but also, like you said, with impact aid. And I think the conversation is even moving forward, and definitely with special education on the federal level. It has been brought up in everything that I've been on and privileged to be on in the last 2 weeks of, okay, where do we go with that, with funding special education? So I think our state has done a great job as far as bringing it to the forefront. And I think it's just something that on the federal level, once we can get our local to understand it, I think there's be some alignment of understanding where the funds would help. All right, thank you all. Now policies. So we are being asked to approve the second reading of revisions to policy 3205, sexual harassment for students prohibited. Ms. Beck.
Yes, thank you. Tonight is the second reading and request for adoption, and there were no changes since the first reading.
All right, do we have any questions or comments for the board? All right, do we have a motion to approve the second reading of adoption revision to policy 3205, sexual harassment of students prohibited as presented?
Move approval.
Okay.
Go, Eric.
Move approval of second reading and adoption of revisions to policy 3205, sexual harassment of students prohibited as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right, we're unanimous. The second reading of revised policy 3205, sexual harassment of students prohibited, is approved as presented.
Thank you.
All right. Now we're being asked to approve the second reading of revisions to policy 5011, sexual harassment of district staff prohibited. Ms. Beckman.
Yes, tonight I ask for your approval and adoption of the second reading. There were no changes since the last time it was presented.
All right, do we have any questions or comments from the board? All right, do we have any motion to approve the second reading of adoption of revisions to policy 5011, sexual harassment of district staff prohibited as presented?
Move approval of second reading and adoption of revisions to policy 5011, sexual harassment of district staff prohibited as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right, with unanimous, the second reading of the provision revised policy 5011, sexual harassment of district staff prohibited is approved as presented. Oh man, this is a lot. All right, we're being asked to approve, I know you did. We're being asked to approve the second reading of revisions to policy 5001, hiring of retired school employees. Ms. Beck?
Yes, there were no changes since the first reading, and I ask for your approval of this second reading of the policy.
All right, do we have any questions or comments from the board? All right, do we have a motion to approve the second reading of adoption to revisions to policy 5001, hiring of retired school employees as presented?
Move approval of second reading and adoption of revisions to policy 5001 of retired school as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right, with unanimous, the second reading of revision to 5001, hiring of retired school employees is approved as presented. All right, we are being asked to approve the second reading of proposal new policy 5515, workforce secondary traumatic stress. Ms. Beckman.
Yes, this is a new policy, second reading. There have been no changes since the first one, and tonight I ask for your approval and adoption.
All right, do we have any questions or comments from the board? All right, do we have a motion to approve the second reading and adopt the proposed new policy 5515, workforce secondary traumatic stress as presented?
Move approval of second reading and adoption of proposed new policy 5515, workforce secondary traumatic stress as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 With unanimous decision, the second reading of provision new policy 5515, workforce secondary traumatic stress is approved as presented.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Beckman. All right, and then here we are. Whew, all right. We're being asked to approve the second reading of revision to policy 2125, sexual health education. Ms. Sabaka.
Thank you. Tonight, I request approval of the second reading of policy 2125. There have been no changes since the first reading.
All right, do we have any questions or comments from the board? All right, do we have a motion to approve the second reading of adoption of revision to policy 2125, sexual health education as presented?
Move approval of second reading and adoption of revisions to policy 2125 sexual health education as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right, with the unanimous, the second reading of revised policy 2125, sexual health education is approved as presented.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right. We are being asked to approve the second reading of proposed new policy 3411, accommodating students with seizure disorder and epilepsy. Mr. McKenzie.
Yes, looking for your approval of second reading. No changes to the first reading, and I do believe there was a question asked last time regarding number of students with seizures. We have 107 students with health plans for seizures in the school district. So looking for your approval tonight, no changes.
Thank you for that data. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? All right. Do we have a motion to approve the second reading of adoption of proposed new policy 3411, accommodating students with seizure disorder or epilepsy as amended?
Move approval of second reading and adoption of proposal new policy 3411, accommodating students with seizure disorders or epilepsy as amended.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right, unanimous vote. The second reading of new policy 3411, accommodating students with seizure disorder and epilepsy is approved as amended. Thank
you.
All right.
Can I ask a question? If there were no changes from the first reading, why is it as amended?
Oh,
We have put it from before, right?
no. Sorry, there was a change. I should it was in the memo in the like the references at the bottom. The
RCW.
RCW.
it's not even an RCW. It's like 42 USC. It didn't change the policy. It was just in there.
Reference.
It was the reference. It was
the
incorrect on the first one. It had something, and now it's American with Disabilities Act.
Yeah,
So
it wasn't a policy change. It was just making sure that we had the reference in here to it.
But it's a new policy. So what are you changing?
So from the first reading, Eric, in the reference part, it said 42 USC.
Yeah, we had to reference it.
Thing, and then it says on-time grade level progression and graduation of students who are homeless. Like, it was the wrong reference. So they corrected the reference. So the change from the first reading to the second reading is the reference now correctly references the American with Disabilities Act.
Yeah, it wasn't a policy.
Franklin said there was no changes. That was correct.
Are you sure that wasn't changes to 2409?
The memo's 3411.
3411. No, but we definitely did change the reference number. That wasn't what on one I had. It's not the same.
Doesn't change the result. We've already voted on it. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I get what you're saying is that him saying no changes is absolutely, because the reference to it was changed. But we did say amended. So that's the main thing, is that we did say amended.
We can move on.
All right. 3711. Okay. We have been asked to approve the second reading of revision to policy 2409, credit for competency proficiency. Mr. McKenzie.
Yes, looking for your approval tonight. No changes from, I'm almost afraid to say it, from first reading for policy 2409, credit for competency proficiency as presented.
All right, do we have any questions or comments from the board?
No.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the second reading of adoption to revision to policy 2409, credit for competency and proficiency as presented?
Move approval of second reading and adoption of revisions to policy 2409, credit for competency proficiency as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 The second reading revision policy 2409, credit for competency proficiency is approved as presented. All right, two at a time. We are being asked to adopt the second reading revision to policy 3416, medication at school. Mr. McKenzie.
Yes, no changes from the first reading for second reading and adoption of revisions to policy 3416, medications at school, and looking for your approval.
All right. Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
No.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the second reading of adoption revision to policy 3416, credit of competency?
Medication at school.
Medication, sorry. That is the medication, right? Sorry. Reason of policy for medication at school.
Move approval of second reading and adoption of revisions to policy 3416, medication at school as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right. With the unanimous decision, the second reading revision. Oh, sorry. That's right. Aye. Sorry. You said aye? Eric? Okay. Gotcha. Sorry. And all right. The second reading of revision to policy 3416, medication at school, is approved as presented.
Thank you.
Just worried. Yeah. I won't move on now. All right, next is enrollment report for November. Ms. Bailey, who's online? Yes. Those motherfuckers, I should have looked at it earlier. Okay. Yeah.
Good evening, board members. In your packets, you have the enrollment as of November 1st, 2022. In November,
Paulie freezing.
Why don't you have her take her video off? Try that.
That's right, she's out my seat.
She's out.
Yeah, she's out my seat.
Oh, Zoom quit.
Oh.
Oh, ours.
I had to flip it. This is.
Zoom's having a moment.
Okay.
Okay.
It'll probably come.
All right, so let's see. Let me see.
If we need to, we can. If we have to, we have to call them, so we can move that to, I don't think that, this whole section can go to
Yeah.
December 14th if we need to.
Okay.
And then I think.
Because we're not approving anything, so.
And then we'll just finish up.
Yeah. So we can do that and then see if you come back. You want to do that? Oh, but no, but then that means nobody's online. Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
let's
so
check
it's
for a
me.
second.
Yeah.
Worst
That's
case
right,
scenario,
forgot.
we can-
Oh, it's coming back.
Gotta do like in my house. Everybody off your phones.
okay. Is the boardroom ready for me to move forward with the budget status report?
We hear you now. Hold on.
Hold on.
Oh,
Oh, we lost our Zoom connection, so
She went through the entire.
we didn't hear any of your enrollment report.
Oh, okay. Well,
Sorry.
it was great.
I'm sure it was.
November 1st, we saw a slight
Hold on.
increase in overall enrollment, 2.77 increase from the prior month. We are still projecting an enrollment deficit from budget of about 100 FTE at this time. As we continue to move forward and collect enrollment data with each month, we will continue to modify that projection based upon the updated data. But right now, we're still holding where we started the year at about 100 FTE down. Are there any questions?
All right. Any questions, comments from the board? No? All right. Good.
Okay. Are we ready to move on to the budget status report for September?
Yes, we are.
Okay. In your board packets, you have the monthly budget status report as of September 2022. For our general fund, we finished the month at $16.7 million. Very similar to where we were this time last year. I have modified the projections that you see in that report to include the adjustment that we will start seeing in January for the enrollment coming in lower than budgeted. As many of you are aware, we receive our apportionment dollars for September through December based upon our budgeted enrollment. And then starting in January, they will adjust, the state will adjust our apportionment payments so that it accurately reflects our actual enrollment, and then we'll keep adjusting for the remainder of the year. So that is included in the projection in this report. Year to date, revenues and expenditures are tracking as expected with the changes that I just discussed. So we are looking at this point, we've spent 7.65% of our anticipated expenditures, and we've received 6.7% of our total revenue anticipated. For our debt service, ASB and transportation vehicle funds, our debt service total as of September is $8.6 million. Our ASB is $1.3 million, and our transportation vehicle fund is $994,000. These are where we expect them. Debt service, we will continue in October and November receiving property tax collections that will enable us to make our bond and interest payment, which is actually due tomorrow. So that is in the works of getting paid. So any questions about those funds? Okay, and then lastly, our capital projects fund. Our September fund balance for the capital projects fund is $49.1 million. This is, we see very little activity usually in September. Normally in the month of September, we are actually paying invoices that are accrued back to the prior fiscal year. So that's what we're seeing in these charts here. I would anticipate that our activity is going to be less than what we had originally budgeted, primarily due to the delays that we're seeing as a result of our inability to get our permits for Fairview. So, any questions about the budget or the budget status report for September?
No, I mean not.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Billy.
And then I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can use the do the year-end financial report. So please bear with me while I. Okay. So Athena, I am not able to share my screen. I'm getting a message that the host has disabled that. Okay.
There we go.
All right. So the year-end financial report, this is for our finances as of August 31st. So we're going back in time by about a month from the report I just gave you. Next slide, please. Tonight we're going to, again, just kind of at a very high level, and you've got a lot more information in your board materials, but we're going to review for finances for the 21-22 school fiscal year at year end. We're going to take a look at where we ended up with enrollment, as well as looking at the year end fund balance statuses as of August 31st for all funds. And then we will take a look at the fiscal health score, which is a metric that OSPI has developed by which different financial indicators are reviewed and scored, and we come up with a bottom line score, which we'll talk about. Next slide. Okay, so the purple line there, the 21-22, we had a actual ending enrollment, and this is for an average FTE for the entire year of 11,096. Our budget for 21-22 was 11,040, which is that black line. So we were slightly over our budgeted enrollment, and at year end. You can see that our 22-23, while we know we're down, we were budgeting very similar to last year. So overall our enrollment this year is down from last year. Next slide. Here we have the year-end balances for all 5 funds. In the 21-22 school year, we started the year in the general fund with $18.9 million. Our revenues and our expenditures were very close, about $142,000 difference between the two, and we had an ending fund balance of just under $18.8 million. One thing I do want to point out for the general fund, those revenues of $184 million, they actually did include $4.6 million of enrollment stabilization dollars that we received from the state. So absent those dollars from the state, we would have actually ended with an ending fund balance $4.6 million lower than the ending fund balance of $18.8 million. In our capital projects fund, we actually increased capital projects, and this was a result of our, we were wrapping up some projects, hadn't really gotten into the next project. So in spite of having received some of the state construction assistance from previous projects, as well as heavy impact aid going into that. So we actually did grow that fund balance by about $4 million. In our debt service fund, we don't want to see this fund balance grow terribly much. We need to make sure that the ending fund balance that we have is going to be enough that along with fall collections, we'll be able to meet our debt service payments. So that $8.4 million that is the ending fund balance for the debt service, this will, along with our fall bond collections, give us the resources necessary to meet our December 1st debt service obligations. Transportation vehicle fund, $993,000 is remaining. Our transportation department is currently working to procure additional buses. So we will be, we do have plans to spend that. You recall last year, we had plans and had buses on order that had been ordered for more than a year. So hopefully we won't have the difficulty in acquiring that equipment that we had in the previous year, and we'll be able to get those new vehicles into our district and on the road. And then finally, with our ASB fund, we ended the year with about $13,000 more than what we started. These are student generated dollars, which largely is, the kids do fundraisers and activities, and then use those dollars for student designated activities. So we expect this fund to stay pretty static as well. Any questions?
With the bus, there was just one. With the bus, I know that we were talking about getting another vendor. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that Kyle Johnson was looking to other vendors and not staying with the same manufacturer that we were seeing such significant delays with.
Yeah.
Because along with the delays, as I believe I explained, became price increases.
Right.
Just by virtue of waiting. So he's working and looking at other options for purchasing those vehicles.
And that was so that at a federal level, there was a conversation that I don't know who it was that brought it up, that our school districts are suffering because they had buses on order. So I think that now it's out there like that. I just want to make sure that we had made that change for it, because they saw that throughout. It wasn't just one vendor, it was everybody that was going. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Any
next
other
slide.
questions? Sorry. Oh, good.
All right, so here is a little, a closer look at our general fund. The beginning fund balance, we've got those different categories within the fund balance, which are non-spendable. So these are the ending fund balance figures and how it was broken down last year, and that's what's showing in our beginning fund balance. We added revenues of 184 million, and we had expenditures of 184 million. Our ending fund balance consisted of non-spendable fund balance. This includes inventory, commodities inventory, the bus equipment that we have in the garage, as well as prepaid expenses, those items that we had purchased so that they were on hand and ready to use when school starts. These are all part of our ending fund balance, but they're not cash or cash equivalents, so they're considered non-spendable. Carryover balances. I'm sorry, was there a question?
No.
Okay. Carryover balances. This is the amount we allow our buildings and our departments to carry over the money they don't spend. What this does is it helps them to be able to plan for larger purchases, but it also gives them an opportunity to really direct and plan and do some long-term planning with their budgets. So we've got $5.6 million in carryover balances that are part of that ending fund balance, and those dollars are available to those departments and schools to use in the 22-23 school year. Assigned for contingencies, this is the $1.5 million that was set aside with board action for contingencies from the heavy impact dollars that we received back in 2016 when we received that with the reauthorization of the No Child Left Behind, or ESEA. So this is still sitting in our fund balance, and it is designated as assigned since board action was taken back in 2016. The restricted fund balance, this $576,000, this is carryover dollars of restricted state revenues. And this is going to be things such as our LAP dollars that weren't spent. This year, they're allowed to be carried over, but they can only be used on LAP dollars. These are the kinds of things that go into the restricted fund balance. So they're carryover dollars, but they are restricted revenues and may only be used for the specified purpose. So they're designated in this category. I'm going to skip the next one and go down to the assigned minimum fund balance. This is the 5% of expenditures per our board policy. So the $9,220,000 represents 5% of the $184 million in total expenditures. So this is the portion of our total ending fund balance that is the 5% board policy requirement. And then the number up above that, the unassigned fund balance, that's the difference between all of those previous designations and the total ending fund balance.
Everybody understand?
Yes.
All right.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the OSPI financial health score. As I mentioned previously, there are different financial indicators that OSPI has determined are going into this score. The first one is the fund balance to revenue ratio, and this takes a look at your total revenues and other financing sources. So basically revenues or revenue type resources, and how that divides into your unrestricted fund balance. So those areas such as the fund balance policy, the unrestricted carryover. So we are currently sitting at 8.9% of the ratio, and that earns a score of 3 based upon OSPI's criteria. We have very consistently stayed at that 3 level. So we're, that isn't a big change for us. The expenditure to revenue ratio, this is the area, this is one of the areas where we tend to go back and forth. This takes a look at your total expenditures and your total revenues. If your expenditures are higher than your revenues, you're going to have a score of over 100%. If it's lower, it's going to be under 100%. Over 100% will not earn you the highest score possible, which is a 4. You can see in 21-22, we were very close to 100%, but because we were slightly over, we have gone from a 4 in 2021 to a 3 in 21-22. The days cash on hand, this is the one that I really look at, because really this is your liquidity. This is the district's ability to pay bills should something happen and we not receive apportionment from the state for whatever reason. This has been in my career, a couple of times there have been questions as to whether or not we were going to get July apportionment because of a budget late passage. And so this is really our ability to meet payroll should a budget not get approved by the state on time. You can see that we are currently at 32 days, just over 32 days of cash on hand. So we have about a month's cash on hand. But still, this is a low score based upon OSPI's criteria. We have never been above a 1. And you can see back in 1920, we had less than a month. So at this point, is it great? Not based upon the criteria, but it is a month's worth of cash on hand. So I'm comfortable with that. And then finally, our 4-year budget summary plan. This is something that was added when OSP. I'm sorry, yes?
Yeah. I just had a real quick question. Based on their criteria, how many days of cash on hand do you need for higher scores? Like, where do their days split out to get a 2 or a 3? Just curious.
That's a great question, and I could look it up. I can look it up, and I can get you that as soon as I finish this report.
Thank you.
Okay. But that is a great question, and I should have had that on hand. I apologize.
Sorry, it just occurred to me.
And then finally, the 4-year budget summary plan. This is something that was added with the 4-year budget is required. This one is really how a district approaches the 4-year. As long as the district does not show a negative fund balance for any of the 4 years, this is a 4. I'm really not sure of the value of this, because I think that a district could show this, but I'm not sure why they would do so because I would expect any district, and every district is going to make budget adjustments so that they're not truly going to end up in a negative fund balance deficit intentionally. So this one I put less value in. Okay, so you can see that at the bottom, each of those scores is weighted. 40% for the fund balance to revenue ratio, 35 for the expenditure to revenue ratio. The days cash on hand is 15%, and the 4-year summary plan is 10%. So based upon those weighted scores, we are coming in at a 2.8 total profile score. That is lower than the last couple of years. It is the same as our 18-19 score. And then you can see the state average scores for those where I was able to pull the total scores for all of the state. Are there any questions about this?
And I'll say this, I know OSPI puts out, what they have. Do you feel, and because I know you have other measures that you use within the district that you have said, is this a good measurement that OSPI has, or do you think that from your knowledge and experience that you've had in other things that we have looked at, have we scored better?
I think that the first three measures, I think there's some real value in those first three measures. It really gives you a sense of, your liquidity. How are you able to meet your financial obligations in the case of a catastrophic loss of revenue, such as, no budget, no apportionment, that kind of thing. I think this provides the first three measures. As I said, the 4-year budget summary plan, I'm not sure that really provides a lot of value. I think that a score, close to 3, and again, we were so close to that 3.15 with the expenditure to revenue ratio because, but going from a 4 to a 3 because of 0.08% is you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt. We could have been 2% off and still had a 3, or we could have been 99.99 and had a 4. So I'm not sure. It's so it's either yes or no, and I think you've got to take a look at all of it in context of where your district is, in terms of fund balance and, decisions that are being made administratively and in the boardroom around future spending.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from the board?
And I can look that up. I can look that up. Why don't I send a text to Dr. Prince with those breakdowns so that I can let you continue on with the meeting?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Paula.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paula.
All right. Next, we have communications. And yes, I do. One, I'm going to leave it up to Eric. I'll give him his, but I do know, I'm very happy to know we have two champions in our district. So I'm leaving it. I ain't going to take that thunder away from Eric. What, Denise? What? Because y'all know all the sports. So definitely. But beautiful was the trip with the board. I think the event was just beautiful. Really some eye-opening stuff. Kind of came back with belonging and really, like I said, opened it up for me and a lot of the work that I do in the homeless community and just taking that back. But then understanding our students, especially our students of color, from a different standpoint of, belonging and making that space belonging. And it just really was in-depth and good for me overall. And then I hope you guys enjoyed Dr.
Brown.
Dr. Brown, I think I was ready to say the book guy. Dr. Brown, just phenomenal in the wisdom and education that he brought from a mental state of just the brain and how that functions with belonging and also being together and the things that we had to do. So I think the WASDA experience was great out there. It was amazing. Really, really enjoyed it. And just being together as a board and just having not fun, but just being together and able to have a good conversation, and then just really getting it. So I really enjoyed everything with everybody. So I thank all of you for that experience. Then I just I got to speak at a church about homelessness, and I want to say shout out to Franklin and his team. One of the members of this church had brought up, what about homeless kids in our community? And, I really opened their eyes. They didn't know anything about our McKinney-Vento children and how many homeless children we have in our school district. And I kind of went in depth, and it really shocked the whole congregation of that we literally have homeless children in our schools. And as the weather gets, like this, please keep that in mind, that we do have children, we do have families that are sleeping in their cars. We do have families. We don't have enough shelters in Kitsap County, period. So even though it's there to try to help, the overall elephant in the room is housing. But, please be aware and understanding of this is a cold time, and support those organizations that are taking our homeless students and their families in. Because one of the biggest things that I constantly grapple with is that our homeless students show up and they still go to school with the trauma of living out of a car, trauma of living in a house that is, packed and crowded with everybody. So I just wanted to just put that on everybody's mind, because when I said it, it didn't equate that we had homeless students at all. And, it was a great conversation afterwards. So I just wanted to put that out there. And then today I had the pleasure, which I really wish Dr. Prince would have came, but he was dealing with business here. But the Governor's Equity Summit today, once again, was dealing with belonging, but then also just, it was just powerful, because all of us was in the room just talking about people, and how do we all get all voices to the table and accepting other people's opinions and listening to people and their hurt. And I just think it was a great conversation that really went in depth with different departments and different people. I mean, it was over over 900 people there. So it was beautiful to just see the conversations, hard conversations that was happening. And I just, I thank the Governor's Office of Equity for putting it on, because I think that it really just showed everybody wanted to have this conversation, and he just didn't know how. And we was able to dive into the conversation and really get into just everything that is going on. So it was good. It was really powerful. Brought back the gifts. I got 2 books coming for you guys as well. So and then for Eric, it was a great experience. So all right, that's mine. And Vice President Tracy.
Okay. I had to look at my calendar, and it was. I was gonna say I
don't see a report.
No, it's snow day and being mom, but I was able to go to the Steinway concert at the beginning of November, and it was just great. It was great to have students and community members to be able to have an opportunity to show their talents. And yes, the piano is beautiful. So that was really just a fun thing. I participated in a WASDA networking call a few weeks ago, and they actually, it was a time they used Menti for all of us on the call to offer feedback to the state about the pandemic response regarding schools. And so it was a few weeks ago, and I don't remember all of the questions, but I was able to put in the feedback from our district, as me for our district. So that was a good opportunity. And then I visited Brownsville back on Halloween. I got to dress up at Brownsville and see the students there, and that was great. I was at Woodlands again and helping in a few classes. They had their fair going. And so that was it's fun. Right before we went to WASDA, I went to Ole in the JD Sweet's American History classroom, and so students were presenting their masterpiece, and so they had taken what they had learned so far and kind of succinctly put in, what it meant to be, or the struggle to be an American, I think was the kind of the overarching theme. Students did great. They had artwork, and we just did an oral presentation. We were able to go through, different each table, and so that was just neat to watch students share what they had learned. I went to Bud Hawk and got to read with kindergartners, which is wonderful, and work with some 4th graders and finishing up some science. And then at Clear Creek, I went and just visited a couple of classes and was able to do a little video. They were doing a full week in their morning announcements about being grateful. So I got to pick from what students had submitted and pick a few of those and share what I was grateful for. So that was fun. And then at Fairview, with our district theme of building hope, it was really great. I was able to go to the Avid 8 class and watch Miguel Lopez, build hope. And that they did, it was right before Thanksgiving, and so they were doing what they were grateful for, and one of the things was a future experience that they will be grateful for. And in the book, right, it talks about how to envision your future, and that's the building hope. And so it was great to see that in action in a classroom. So yeah, there we go.
All right. Bertha?
All right, and I happened to be at Clear Creek right after she had made her video. I have a group of third graders there that read with me once a week, and so I happened to see your video while I was collecting kids out of a classroom. So I've been reading with a group of third graders at Clear Creek and a group of third graders at Silver Ridge, and then I just started reading with a group of first graders this week at Emerald Heights. So we are going to get these kids reading. So we just came back from WASDA, I guess a week and a half ago, and I'm still processing everything that we learned. But one of the classes that I took at WASDA fit in really well with our current strategic planning, and the class was about incorporating student voice into your strategic planning through listening tours. And last spring, I did a listening tour actually here at Barker, down the hallway in Barker Creek. But the group that was presenting would meet with students on Fridays during lunch, and they did a school climate listening tour. And they would ask the same 4 questions to elementary kids, middle schoolers, high schoolers, and I wrote these questions down. I thought that they were really good, and I'm hoping I can incorporate them in the next listening tour I do. And it's, what is working well? What needs work? Is there some aspect of our culture that is unfair? And what question are we not asking? And it was that 4th question, like what are we not asking you that you think we should be asking you? And they asked everyone from kindergartners through seniors in high school. The elementary students had answers like they wanted swings or better recess toys. But I really like those 4 questions, and I want to implement those the next opportunity I have. And it goes right in, I think it falls right in line with what we're currently doing with our strategic plan. And then a couple weeks ago, I was up at Silver Ridge signing in to read, and I love what their staff has done. So next to where you sign in, they had a basket of flower bulbs and a little hand trowel, and they were asking anyone that came in to take a bulb, go outside into their community garden and plant this bulb, and then you can come back in the spring and see your flower blooming. And I thought that was just a wonderful, beautiful way to build a community up there. So I just wanted to share that with all of you. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right, Director Green.
So, Drayton, I'd like to thank you for reminding me that we won state championships. I was going to say I didn't have anything to report, but I'll just take a second to recognize. I think the CK High School girls cross country team won the state championship over in Eastern Washington or Central Washington, and then also in girls cross country, the Clahalia girls won the academic state championship award for that, which I think was super. And then of course, killing time sitting in the airport, and then sitting for the last few minutes on the plane. It was fun to watch. And this is one thing I think that's come out of the COVID and the pandemic is the fact that you can virtually watch any sport you want to, at least at the high school level, varsity or junior varsity. It was fun to watch Clahalia girls win their 3rd state soccer title defeating Linden Christian 3-1. So it was, there was a lot of, hey, who are you? I was a little loud at the airport when they scored. Kind of, well, not loud, but kind of emphatic in my reaction. So people were like, "So what are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, girls are big championship." And they're like, "Oh, that's nothing to it." I'm like, "Sorry, it's a big deal." So anyway, congratulations to all three of those teams. And there are other individual, I think, swimming swimmers that did at state and everything else. I look forward to having an opportunity for those folks, for Lauren McDaniel and their coaches, to bring them to the board and introduce them to us, so they can tell us about their season and how things went well. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Thank you, Rick. Dr. Prince.
Yeah, we're looking forward to bringing our state champs to a future board meeting so that we can congratulate them in person, which will be fantastic. So before I give my report, I want to go ahead and follow up with the question. Days cash on hand, the question was, what is the state's really their cutoff? So 0 to 30 days is a 0 score. Okay. So if you have under 31 days on hand, you have 0. 30 days is a state average, 1 score. State average of 6 to 60 days would be 2 points. 60 days to 90 days would be a 3, and over 90 days would be a 4.
That's a lot of cash on
Yeah,
hand.
that's
There's a lot of cash on
4.
hand.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Thank you, Paula, for following up on that.
I wish.
So Monday morning, oh my gosh, this was super exciting. We had more than 600 of our third graders from 8 of our elementary schools that came to what was some of our third graders' very first field trip, because they were kindergartners when the pandemic hit. And so we brought them to the Central Kitsap Performing Arts Center for a performance of the Nutcracker. And our welcome team, many of us, greeted, scanned tickets, and seated every student, volunteer, and visitor in less than 20 minutes. It was remarkable. Every student had a ticket. They had a barcode, so we knew exactly who was in our building at the high school. Every visitor volunteer had a badge and had already gone through Raptor before they entered the campus. And all our staff had badges. So we were able to put into place some of our security and safety procedures, and it was fantastic. But beyond that, I'm so thankful for the teachers and all the parent volunteers and transportation, other staff members for their help in making this large event possible. And we heard firsthand from many of the students that they loved it. In fact, one third grader was talking to his friend as they were walking out and basically said, "It isn't just that I liked this play." He said, "I loved it." So it was great, and they were absolutely enthralled watching them. The strategic planning process, the first phase of our strategic planning process, input gathering, is nearly complete. It's critical that we collect as much feedback as possible before we move on to our next phase in the process. If you could not attend a meeting at your child's school or one of our community forums, please take a few minutes to complete the online survey. The survey will close tomorrow, believe it or not. We have some handouts here tonight with a link to the survey. You can also find it on our website. Currently, we have, I believe, over 1,000 participants, whether in person or online. And so we're really excited about the amount of feedback and input. So that's where we are with the strategic planning process. In January, we are launching our new District Ambassadors Program. This program is aimed at better connecting our district with those we serve. Participants will receive an in-depth information, resources, and access that will help strengthen relationships and build trust with our community. Graduates of this program will be equipped to serve as ambassadors for the district and share what they've learned with others. We'll celebrate our first class of graduates in June. If you know someone who would be a good fit for this ambassador program, please encourage them to visit our website to learn more and apply. The application deadline is Monday, December 5th. And then lastly, winter weather. Surprise, surprise. Of course, I need to address this. After an amazingly dry and sunny fall, I think it's safe to say that winter weather is here. Bad weather can sometimes result in changes to our school or bus schedules. We typically announce changes by 6 a.m. or earlier. So if you don't hear from us by then, it means schools and buses are operating normally. We announce changes by phone and email, as well as an alert on our district and school websites. We also post the information on social media. If you need to update your family's phone number or email address, please do that as soon as possible by contacting your child's school directly. A huge shout out to our emergency crews and grounds maintenance and custodial staff. Literally, we're out till very late last night and up again extremely early this morning and shoveling and plowing and trying to take care of the snow and ice that had piled up on the west side of our district. It is always very difficult to make a decision when we look out our windows on the east side of our district and we see rain. And then I travel up Newberry and I'm in a winter wonderland of close to 8 to 10 inches of ice and snow and power outages. So it is always challenging for Central Kitsap. We have hundreds and hundreds of square miles and very different microclimates that impact our changes. What I really love, and Mr. Block doesn't know I'm showing this, but he put together a short video that kind of describes what's happening, and it starts at 2 a.m. So if I'm kind of stuttering tonight, and I alerted the board to that, it's every night is really an early morning of decision making, and it starts at 2 a.m. with Mr. Block and emergency crews traveling the roads, and we've been sharing pictures because I think that's the best way for some of our community members, especially on the east side, to actually see why we make the decisions we do. So Joe is going to explain this in a video that's also posted on our website. Let's see if we can get that running for us.
We start driving the roads at 2. We're doing brake tests, acceleration tests. We're checking the roadways for ice, snow. We're checking bridges, overpasses. We call the county. We make sure that we're teaming with them for plowing, de-icing, making sure we have information for them. We're checking all our microclimates. We're making sure we hit all the points of the district. And that's quite a lengthy process to drive the whole district. We use our resources. We have a weather service that we call, make sure the weather predictions are tracking. And we use all that information to gather together as a district team by 5 o'clock to make sure that we're making an informed decision, the best possible decision as to whether open, delay, or close our schools. And then by 6 o'clock, we're making the decision, communicating that decision, and making sure all our parents, staff, and students know about our roadways.
I think it's important that to understand that there's so many different factors involved. For instance, the roadways may be plowed, but the plowing leaves huge drifts where our littlest students have to stand in their only place to catch their bus may be in the middle of, on the side of the road, and there's no place for them to stand where it may be icy and snowy. We may have snow routes. As of this morning, we had snow routes that were not even accessible by our buses to even run bus snow routes. We have power outages where we would not be able to run schools. And so I think that there's so many different scenarios and different things that yesterday we actually were able to get all our students and staff home before the snow hit. That's always tricky because the weather can change really on a dime in this area. We were pleased that happened. I do share as kind of an interesting story. When I was a superintendent, not here in Central Kitsap, but in Oregon, we were on day 3 of inclement weather, and it was getting frustrating for our communities, and it was cold, and the snow and ice was not going away. And I dragged my husband into our car, and I said, okay, let's head to the high school. And we got to the high school parking lot, and they said, I want you to drive like a 16-year-old. And so the parking lot was empty, thank goodness, and he drove as a 16-year-old would have, and only he could remember. And it clearly shared with me that I needed, to think about, we have teenage drivers on the road, we have parents on the road, we have the students standing and waiting for buses. So all of those factors are taken into consideration. So never an easy decision, always sensitive to the fact that we have single parents working and childcare issues. So with that, just a little bit of information.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Prince. All right. We will now move on to public comment. If you have signed up to speak tonight, thank you for joining us. The guidelines for making public comments are available on our website now, comment cards. Please be mindful of these guidelines, especially as they relate to maintaining a civil and respectful meeting environment. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. As a reminder, this is an opportunity for citizens to address the board with their comments and concerns, but it is not intended to form for public debate. We will listen with care and consideration, and any matters requiring follow will be addressed outside of the meeting. We will begin with in-person comments. Do we have any comment cards?
We do. We'll start with Marwan. Cameron?
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
I hope your holiday was good and restful and restorative. Last time I was here, I spoke about the issue with Mason County High School and the kids there. Since then, the NAACP has gotten involved and had conversations with parents and students and with the school districts. There have been numerous conversations and panels with students, Kitsap Black Student Union, the girls that were involved. Some of them appeared on my podcast with their parents. And right now, as it stands, there doesn't seem to be much being done that is satisfactory to the kids or to the parents. In Mason County, what they have set up is diversity training at the beginning that students need to pass. And so their goal is to have those kids retake that training. We're not very confident that that is going to be a help. Unfortunately, the Bremerton High School principal put out a letter today. And just quickly here, winter sports are upon us, and there are rules that are set. Please sit in the appropriate designated sections, take part in cheers and applaud, work cooperatively, and obey the officials, refrain from making negative comments, and stay in the playing field at all times. The problem with this is this almost seems punitive on the actual Bremerton school kids that this issue that took place, right? And so, there are a lot of folks that gave some feedback on this today, and they're not confident. We're hoping that CK School District will stand in solidarity and get involved, because all parents and all kids need to be safe at these venues, as now these winter sports are upon us. These girls that were affected are actual, I don't know the term for it, but they get the water and get the equipment for the boys basketball team. So they're back in Mason County here in just a little bit, and there really doesn't seem to be anything adequate in there. So we're asking for CK to stand in solidarity and get involved with this and be a leader in trying to address this issue and make sure that our kids are safe wherever they go. Thank you.
Thank you.
James Bromley?
That little presentation on how you determine road conditions for closing down school helped clarify some things in my mind. Thing is, I've lived in the county for quite a few years, and typically what happens is that the West County really gets hammered with snow, bad roads. It's a more rural part of the county, more power outages, that type of thing. You get over on this side, a lot of times, what we just saw here in the last 24, 48 hours is we get a little bit of a dusting, okay? It's either rain or rain and snow mixed, doesn't stick on the roads, get a little dusting on your lawn. I'm wondering if there's some way that we can figure out avoiding having to shut down the entire district. If we can figure out the schools that are the least impacted by the bad weather and keep them open so that all the kids in the district, some of the kids in the district can continue to go to school under bad weather conditions. When I was growing up in the 50s in White Center, see back in those times, we had a lot more snow than we experience now due to climate change. And typically what would happen in our school district, in the Highline School District, is it had to get pretty bad to shut down school. They had snow routes for the buses. They would change some of the routes to avoid really bad hill situations. And then they would just chain up the fleet and we'd go on to school anyway. So I'm just wondering if there's some way that we can figure out a way to keep schools open in the district that are the least impacted by the weather. We've got kind of a unique geographical situation here where because of the canal and because West County's at a much higher elevation than we are over here, they get hammered with quite a bit more snow than we do.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll now accept comments by online or by phone. For those of you on, wait, do we have?
We have one.
Okay. For those of you on Zoom, the name or the online comment must match the login name. Please raise your hand and you'll be prompted to the panelist. You need to click on the button allowing you to join. Unmute your audio and start your video. Individuals who are joining by phone, we will be identified by the number listed on the online comment form. When your name is called, you will be prompted to enter number 6 on your phone. Thema.
We have Melissa Kugler. Melissa, you need to unmute.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, goodness. Sorry. We were leaving the gym. I was waiting for my daughter to come out. Okay. I think I'm on. I don't know why I don't even think I have a video. That's weird.
We can hear you.
Okay. I can't. As long as you can hear me, I'm good. Okay. I wanted to follow up with the last board meeting. I was the one that had mentioned I would love to partner with some people for the school board to find out about if there was any ways we can help kids process through the trauma and the after effect of issues or concerns. And I hadn't heard from anybody. So if one of you guys would be so kind as to email me or give me a call, and we can have that discussion as to what you guys already have in place, and can we have some parents join a panel and be a part of that as well. As I know the issue with CK is not the last time we'll have concerns in a school. And then I wanted to just publicly say thank you to the Klahia administration. We had an incident a few weeks ago and they just completely took care of my daughter, and I was really grateful for that. And then otherwise I just I know I had my other question, sorry, the sports things, the sports events where we have to pay for the passes. I was curious if we could consider bringing back, I understand it's easier to do the online thing, but can we bring back the option for kids to pay at the gate or at the thing? Like when I go to Klahia to a game, they have like no cell service, so it's really hard if I haven't pre-bought the ticket or if my daughter or I have other kids going or something like that, and they have to pay, and they might not be able to do the QR code thing at the thing. If we could consider bringing back, like having the option of doing both, we would appreciate it. I know Snack Shack they do both, or they do cash only sometimes, and then anyway. That was just one of our questions as a family, like, why can't we go back to both? There hasn't been a lot of discussion or public information given as to why this change came about without the option of paying in person as well as paying online. Like, totally understand paying online. It's nice to have. As the paying in person thing, can we go back to offering that? So anyway, I just wanted to say, hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. Sorry, I'm a little bit distracted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
All right. I thank for all of you that spoke today, and that concludes tonight's public comment. Board members, you have in front of you information on December 14th, regular board meeting. Are there any questions, comments? And yes, we will be recognizing our state champions. Okay.
Are we at miscellaneous?
Did we just want to I don't know how many people are on Zoom, but emphasizing that we did, as part of the consent agenda, we changed December 14th to a regular board meeting because it's our only meeting in December.
Yeah.
So that it will be a regular board meeting and it'll be held here at TLC.
All right. So good of the order, miscellaneous.
So, yeah. So Drayton, I've got one. So this morning, it's not 5 or 10 minutes after the announcement or the notification that school was closed today. I got an email asking, it was, we barely have any snow over here. It's rain. Is it still? Do we still do the same thing that we did before, which is exactly what Aaron and Joe explained and everything? But some of the conversation, some of the thinking has to do with, I think, that's out there is, or maybe it's a discussion that we should have around doing some remote work, especially, I know Mr. Brownlee was talking in the city. I've lived here almost 20 years now, and to me, we're seeing a lot more snow, and we're seeing it earlier and potentially later, which requires additional snow days and those concerns like that. So, based on is there what I'm been asked to convey to the board, and I'm interested on my own is we've invested in infrastructure and everything else. Maybe going remote is less convenient for some folks and others, but it's something that we should look at, that we could save a snow day here or there, and that we could even things up. I mean, I know the concern for the East Side parents are that their kids are home almost on a vacation day, because of the snow on the West Side. And trust me, I'm sitting here at home doing this meeting because of the snow on the West Side. My power didn't come back on until about noon today. So I get exactly, I know exactly why we didn't have school, and it was easy to explain. It's just something, we have the infrastructure, we have the technology, the forecasts are getting more accurate, and everything. So maybe it's something that we should consider or look into if we have a high level of confidence that we're probably going to miss school for a day or two, that we could probably take some steps to do some remote learning that would save us snow days and let the kids work through those days. So something to consider.
Thank you, Director Green. Just definitely follow up on that too. Forward. All right. Are there any other items require any follow-ups for us? We will be looking at, I think there's one, right? That we have to. There was only one. Yes. Yep. Just the one for this. All right. There's no other items. Then the meeting will quite file up, and then we have an executive session to discuss legal matters in accordance with RCW 42 0.30.110. The board will recess into executive session according to RCW 4230.110 to discuss legal matters. The executive session will be held in the Pine Room and will begin in, let's say, 10 minutes. Let's go to the bathroom. Yeah. Setting up the Zoom. All right. So in 10 minutes is what? What is that? 7:45. Let's say 7:45, and will last for approximately 15. Let's say 15. Yeah, 15 minutes. Any extension to the executive session will be announced in a virtual and in-person meeting. Board members will reconvene and meeting virtually and in person. No decisions will be made during the executive session, and no actions will be taken. All right.